Well, welcome to season 4, episode 8 of the podcast Get Bonded, Stay Bonded, the 6 lessons approach to biomimetic dentistry. We have questions quite often about liners and bases. Personally, I've been a dentist for 50 years. That's a long time. You start in dental school in 1975, you graduate in 1978. Here we are in 2026. We use liners on every restoration in those days, and we use bases on most of the restorations. All of those restorations were mechanically retained. All of those restorations had sensitivity. You do a filling, it's sensitive to cold. You do a crown, it's sensitive to biting. Those liners and those bases under mechanical retention still allowed pulpal fluid to move underneath fillings and underneath crowns. Now, the discovery that the mechanism of sensitivity is the movement of pulpal fluid really didn't become prominent internationally until 1982. And so I learned anatomy, that there was a pulp, there was a hydration coming from the pulp, and that was called pulpal fluid. I did learn that. It passed through tubules that were about 4 millimeters long before they hit the DEJ. So I had the basic anatomy that hasn't changed in 50 years. We haven't evolved that fast. But the idea is that pulpal fluid, if you don't know how it relates to pain, how are you going to deal with the idea that I've restored a tooth with the filling, with the crown, and it still hurts? We should be in a much better place now because we understand that the movement of the pulpal fluid, which was a theory in the 1982 period when Martin Brannstrom published his book, now we can call it the source of pain because it's been replicated many times. And one of my close friends who passed away 3 years ago, Charlie Cox, was one of the main researchers in researching that pulpal fluid movement as a source of pain. He actually discovered a small flagella that came off of the odontoblastic process, and he called it the nociceptor. Nos is a Greek word for pain. I don't know why we use Greek words, but science came from the Greeks originally. Aristotle was our founding father of trying to make a comprehensive approach to knowledge with documentation and making deductions. Well, if you have an idea and you're able to verify it, and it takes 20 years to verify, that's one thing. But if it takes another 20 years to start teaching it, that's pretty slow promulgation of knowledge. Fusiyama, who was following closely Brannstrom's work, introduced the concepts of sealing dentin. If sealing the dentin in 1978, when Fusiyama is ready to publish his book in 1980, is understood as a solution to a problem by Brannstrom, that's kind of a compliment. Unfortunately, compliments between cultures and languages are difficult to translate. And it never really sunk into Brannstrom that both of them could be important pioneers in biomimetic dentistry, and instead of working together, they competed. Oh man, I'm so old. Competition gets a little old. And Fusiyama never was able to connect with Brannstrom, although he quoted him in his book many times. And Brannstrom thought Fusiyama was a fruitcake. Now that's probably hyperbole, is probably a joke. It was told to me by my first mentor, Ray Bertolotti. But Ray Bertolotti taught me with adhesive dentistry, we didn't need liners or bases. And he got that information from his mentor in adhesive dentistry, Takao Fusiyama. And this is the statement. I want you to write it down. There's 2 kinds of liners and bases. There's useless and there's worse than useless. Let's start with the worst of the useless first. So the first liner I used was Copalite. It was supposed to seal the dental tubules. What was it like? It's just a varnish, kind of like a varnish you'd use on wood, and you'd put it on the dentin, it'd kind of be shiny, and then you'd put several layers on it because the carrier was actually acetone or ethanol. I can't remember which one, but it needed to be evaporated, and maybe more layers would be better. So you'd put Copalite on, you dry it off, you put some more Copalite, dry it off, put some Copalite. It's very thin, like 5 microns thick. And it was used, I think, for 50 years. Every dental school taught it for 50 years, from the 1950s to 2000. But Bertolotti, when he started to lecture, the one he really went after was worse than useless. So Copalite was useless. It didn't seal the tubules. But the liner that's called Diclow was worse than useless because it was so thick that it would wash out underneath your filling, and then it would give filling a space that the filling could be compressed on, and it would start a crack of an amalgam or even a gap under a gold filling. But this Dycal, Bertolotti, he always liked to make a joke of things, and instead of spelling it Dycal, cal was supposed to be calcium. The dye, I don't know what it was supposed to mean, but he used to spell it Diecal, like kill the pulp, Dycal. And he gave hundreds, if not thousands, of lectures with that slide, and ridiculing Dycal is worse than useless. It makes the restoration worse. And then there's some bases that came and became popular. And the first one that I was exposed to was called IRM. It was invented during the Vietnam War as an intermediate restorative material, a temporary material. It was eugenol based. You'd mix it up with basically calcium hydroxide powder and also a eugenol. Oh, the other material's slipping my mind. I'm getting old at 75. But anyway, the older dentists will remember what Dycal was. You mix it up, it was like a putty. And on deep restorations, that would give a support, but it's useless as far as sealing the pulp and preventing bacteria from invading the pulp. And so it was shown before I went to dental school on experiments on animals that never were exposed to germs, mostly rats, notobiotic experiments with rats that never had germ exposure. They were called germ-free experiments. And on these rats, they would anesthetize the rat, then they'd cut the top of the crown off. When the rat woke up, his immune system was causing a clot, but there was no germs because it was a germ-free environment. The germs were totally sealed off from the rats. And so then they would watch these pulp exposures and they would heal, just go through their healing process, never die. Total exposure, never put a restoration on it, but without bacteria, there was no necrosis. So that experimentation I was actually exposed to before I went to dental school as a microbiology major, notobiotic experiments. But then as we went into dental school, very little science that was current really was entering the curriculum in 1975 to 1978. And so Fusiyama's idea on adhesive dentistry to dentin didn't really enter the literature internationally until 1980. He wrote his book. And the idea is seal the dentin with a seal that you can't get bacteria into. And so he wrote about that and tested it on flat experimental teeth that were extracted. They didn't have pulps. And they tested the bond strengths, and he got bond strengths that were like 15, even 20 megapascals. But then Brannstrom, 2 years later, published his book and showed that Fusiyama's bonding technique did nothing like what Fusiyama theorized, because he was actually using in vivo experimentation on monkeys, and they did the experiments and the restorations when the teeth were extracted and histologically examined showed there were gaps right next to the pulp on all these restorations filled with bacteria. And so that's why Brannstrom thought Fusiyama was a fruitcake, and he kept doing bases. And I don't think he did liners. I think he agreed with Bertolotti that Dycal was a bad idea, because Brannstrom was close to not only Bertolotti, but to Charlie Cox. And Charlie Cox was the one that exposed teeth under a rubber dam on monkeys, anesthetized monkeys. And then they restored the teeth with adhesives, and the adhesive was right on the exposure. The pulps healed. When they put a liner or a base, and they tested all the liners, all the bases, glass ionomer, IRM, it didn't help the healing at all. If anything, it slowed it down a little bit. But the seal that Charlie Cox made on these experiments were low C-factor preparations. What does that mean? That means a preparation, instead of looking like a cup, looked like a plate or a saucer. Now, to understand that, you have to understand the science that Carol Davidson introduced in 1984 and 1987. It's been experimented with several times, and it has been shown that the shape of the preparation and the surface area that's bonded is related to the surface area of a restoration that's not bonded. So the ratio of bonded to unbonded surface, you have 5 surfaces in a cuppy-like preparation. 5/1 means the C-factor equals 5. And if your C-factor is 5 versus C-factor of 1, you've cut your bond strength in half by measurements that have been done over and over and over again. So an adhesive dentist might say, I just want to stay bonded so the tooth's not sensitive. If you have a low bond strength that is established without considerations of C factor, it will be low because the hybrid layer is stretched. And oftentimes the stretching actually will be a delamination in small areas. And over time, the functional chewing will continue to degrade that stretched area. And that was a beautiful experiment by Charlie Cox and Toru Nikaido, other researchers. Tagami was on that paper. Kunzelman was on that paper, 2002. It says, if you don't control for C factor, you lose 50% of your bond strength, and then over time, the functional forces will continue to degrade that bond strength. Whereas if you create the hybrid layer without stress, then you don't lose any bond strength. It's like bonding to a flat surface. And now, over time, if you test that surface that wasn't stressed, then you have no degradation of bond. So that was done on a flat surface and a preparation that looked like a cup. My innovation was there is a time element to that flat surface where it's acting like a plate. For 5 minutes to 30 minutes, the polymerization is happening to such a degree so quickly in that 5 minutes that the strength of the hybrid layer after 5 to 30 minutes is basically stronger than the strength of enamel. Wow, those are new concepts. But the idea is to work together with these ideas of adhesive dentistry that Fusuyama pioneered, and then ideas of C factor that Martin Brannstrom later understood from Carol Davidson. But Brannstrom's real idea was how the pulp worked, how pain was related to pulpal fluid movements. But in any lesson of 6 lessons, there's always 3 pioneers, and those 3 pioneers are Takao Fusuyama in adhesive dentistry and caries detecting dye, Martin Brannstrom in pulpal fluid movement and the cause of pain, and then Carol Davidson in C factor in lesson 4. So lesson 1, lesson 3, Fusuyama, lesson 2, Brannstrom, lesson 4, Carol Davidson. If we wanted to go to lesson 5, obviously that's enamel replacement. It's not touching the tooth, but these liners and bases, not necessary. And the real downside is that they reduce the surface area that you're bonding to. So the better or the larger the surface area you're bonding to, the better the seal, what we call the peripheral seal zone, is increased. But you have to experiment and find a way to not expose the pulp. This is what I did, and when I innovated the measuring technique that we've been teaching for 25 years and was written in the paper in 2012 that I wrote with Pascal Magnier, by not exposing, you just increase the efficiency of the direct pulp cap. But most dentists think you have an exposure, you need to put a direct pulp cap, you need some kind of liner or base. The real popular one is MTA. It's a good one. It kills bacteria, so that's good. But it has a high basic component. It's made out of Portland cement, actually. So they've been using cements for a long time for sidewalks. But Portland cement is the matrix for most cement mixtures that have a composite of rocks. But the idea is that if you have an exposure, all you need to do is stop the bleeding. If you stop the bleeding, then your liner or your first layer of your restoration is just going to be your adhesive. And that's what Charlie Cox showed with his partners around the world with the in vivo experimentations on adhesive dentistry. So liners and bases are useless, but if you want to stop sensitivity, you just need to seal the pulpal tubules, and in that, you have to make sure you eliminate the C factor stresses in the first 5 to 30 minutes. Well, that's a lot to think about, but until next time, get bonded, stay bonded.